Frank Newton. Now listen, I want the throttle lever off the Emma Sweeney. That's the wood burner in the north wing. Right.
Mighty handy having your own railroad museum, isn't it?
For many people, television in the 1960s was a source of comfort, laughter, and family togetherness, and few shows captured that feeling quite like Petticoat Junction. The series, which first aired in 1963, transported viewers to a small, idyllic town called Hootenville, where life moved at a slower pace, people were friendly, and chaos often came with a smile. At the center of the show was the Shady Rest Hotel, a charming little inn run by a widowed mother named Kate Bradley. Kate's 3 daughters, Billy Jo, Bobby Jo, and Betty Jo, added energy, humor, and a sense of mischief to the storyline, while the scheming but lovable Uncle Joe brought comic relief with his get-rich-quick schemes. In many ways, Petticoat Junction was a spiritual cousin to the runaway hit The Beverly Hillbillies, also created by Paul Henning. CBS, noticing how audiences loved rural comedies, decided to build on that success. By blending family warmth, quirky characters, and small-town charm, the show quickly became a favorite, running for 7 seasons and producing 222 episodes. But beyond the simple premise of a train, a hotel, and a family navigating everyday life, the show hides numerous behind-the-scenes stories, casting surprises, and little-known facts that make it even more fascinating today. From almost cast stars to surprising inspirations, Petticoat Junction holds a treasure trove of television history waiting to be explored, and in this article, we dive deep into 15 weird facts about the show that even dedicated fans might not know. When Petticoat Junction first appeared on CBS in 1963, no one could have predicted just how popular it would become. The show debuted as the 4th most-watched program in the entire United States, a remarkable feat for a series about a small-town hotel and its quirky residents. What made this success even more impressive was that the show was competing against big-city dramas, spy shows, and crime series that many thought would dominate the ratings. Yet viewers were drawn to Hootenville, the Shady Rest, and the cannonball train that chugged through the town, not just for its humor but for its comfort and familiarity. Paul Henning, the creative mind behind the show, already had experience creating successful rural comedies, most notably The Beverly Hillbillies. By combining a slower-paced, cozy setting with a cast of characters who were both relatable and entertaining, Henning tapped into a national appetite for shows that celebrated everyday life rather than glamour or intrigue. For 4 years straight, Petticoat Junction remained in the top 20 programs, keeping viewers coming back week after week. Families watched together, children laughed at the antics of the Bradley sisters, and adults enjoyed subtle jokes and clever wordplay sprinkled throughout the scripts. In a time before cable TV, streaming, or on-demand content, appointment television like this created a shared cultural experience, and the Shady Rest became as familiar to Americans as their own living rooms. The early success of the show demonstrates not only the brilliance of its writing and casting but also the ability of television to provide comfort and joy during a rapidly changing era in American culture. One of the most fascinating what-if moments in Petticoat Junction history involves the actress Sharon Tate, who was nearly cast as the eldest Bradley sister, Billy Jo. In the spring of 1963, before the show premiered, Tate was hired for the role. Wardrobe fittings were completed, and she even appeared in promotional photos alongside the cast. However, just weeks before filming began, sponsors discovered that Tate had previously posed for semi-nude photographs in Europe. This revelation caused a scandal at a time when network television was heavily influenced by sponsor opinions. Procter & Gamble, one of the main sponsors, threatened to withdraw their support unless Tate was removed from the cast. Reluctantly, the producers had to recast the role, eventually hiring Janine Riley for the first 2 seasons before the part passed through a few more actresses over the years. Interestingly, Sharon Tate remained under contract with Filmways, the studio behind Petticoat Junction, and was guided towards smaller roles to build her experience. She later appeared in 15 episodes of The Beverly Hillbillies, effectively beginning her acting career in television. This story highlights how much influence sponsors held in early TV production and how a single decision could alter the trajectory of a show. If Tate had remained as Billy Jo, both her career and the dynamics of the Bradley family on screen might have been entirely different. It's a reminder of the hidden pressures behind classic television and the fragile nature of casting decisions in the 1960s. Before settling on the now iconic name Petticoat Junction, the show faced several naming challenges that illustrate just how important a title is to television success. The producers initially considered names like Ozark Widow, which, while accurate in describing a widowed mother raising 3 daughters in the Ozarks, sounded overly depressing and failed to convey the humor or warmth of the series. Another contender was Whistle Stop, referencing the cannonball train that played such a central role in the story. However, this title made the show sound more like a documentary about trains than a family comedy. Even Darn Tootin' was considered, leaning into rural slang and humor, but risking an impression of exaggerated corniness. Ultimately, Paul Henning chose Petticoat Junction, a title that was whimsical, memorable, and perfectly evocative of the show's opening image: the Bradley sisters hanging their petticoats on a water tower. The name suggested lighthearted fun, family warmth, and small-town charm, capturing the essence of the series more successfully than any other option. This decision demonstrates the importance of branding in television, where a single word or phrase can determine whether audiences tune in week after week. Choosing the right title allowed the show to establish its identity immediately and ensured that it would remain in the cultural memory decades later. One of the most memorable aspects of Petticoat Junction was its opening credits, which contained a clever little joke that many viewers, especially adults, might not have fully appreciated at the time. While the series presented itself as a wholesome family sitcom, Paul Henning had a knack for subtle humor that could appeal to older viewers without shocking children or network censors. The opening sequence featured the 3 Bradley sisters taking a bath in the Shady Rest water tower, while their petticoats hung neatly on a line outside. For children, this was simply a charming, quaint depiction of rural life, a quirky setup for the adventures that awaited them in Hooterville. However, adults watching in the 1960s might have noticed a wink hidden in the scene. The show played with innuendo in a way that was clever and entirely safe for primetime television. The curves of the petticoats were a playful double entendre, referencing the curves of the C and FW Railroad, while also giving adults a sly nod to the physical comedy on display. Paul Henning always insisted that everything was innocent, but the joke added a layer of sophistication for viewers who were tuned in beyond the bright-eyed, straightforward antics of the Bradley sisters. This dual-level humor became one of the series' trademarks, allowing Petticoat Junction to entertain both children and adults simultaneously. In an era when television was strictly family-oriented and heavily monitored by networks and sponsors, this clever approach set the show apart. The opening sequence was memorable not only because of the visual gag, but also because it introduced viewers immediately to the warmth, humor, and charm that defined Hooterville. Even decades later, fans recall the sequence with fondness, noting how it perfectly encapsulated the series' blend of innocence, rural life, and a touch of clever comedy that rewarded attentive viewers. The Hooterville Cannonball, the show's central train, was arguably the 4th lead in Petticoat Junction, and it was more than just a prop. Many viewers might remember the train as a source of comedy and charm, but the production used a real steam engine for filming, Sierra No. 3, a locomotive with a distinguished Hollywood career that included appearances in High Noon, Unforgiven, and Back to the Future Part 3. The train's real-life authenticity contributed to the nostalgic feel of the series, creating a sense of place that miniature models or animated trains could never achieve. On screen, the Cannonball operated on its own whimsical schedule, stopping whenever the plot required it, whether to fish, chat, or grab a sandwich. This surreal approach to time and logistics gave Hooterville a timeless, almost storybook quality, where logic took a backseat to charm and character. Audiences were captivated by the train's personality, and the producers treated it as an actual character, integral to both plot development and setting. The Cannonball's appeal was enhanced by its consistent presence throughout the series, often appearing at crucial narrative moments to deliver mail, introduce new visitors, or provide comic relief. For children, it was an exciting adventure. For adults, the train represented a comforting and consistent backdrop to the comedic chaos of Hooterville. This emphasis on setting, combined with the real-life locomotive, ensured that the show's rural charm was believable, immersive, and enduring. The cannonball, like the Bradley family itself, became a symbol of Hooterville, representing both the show's whimsical humor and its heartwarming appeal. It's a reminder that in television, sometimes inanimate objects can carry as much personality and importance as the human actors on screen. While Hooterville might have seemed like a whimsical creation of television writers, the Shady Rest Hotel was actually inspired by real-life experiences. Paul Henning, the show's creator, drew heavily from the childhood memories of his wife, Ruth Henning, who spent summers visiting her grandparents in Eldon, Missouri. There, Ruth experienced firsthand the charm of small-town hospitality at the Burroughs Hotel, sometimes called the Rock Island Hotel. This hotel, modest in size but rich in character, offered home-cooked meals and a sense of community for travelers who were often salesmen or visitors passing through the town. It sat adjacent to railroad tracks, and trains weren't just background scenery. They were central to daily life, bringing goods, visitors, and local gossip alike. By translating these personal experiences into the fictional Shady Rest, Henning created a world that felt grounded, authentic, and warmly nostalgic. The familial interactions, cozy routines, and minor chaos of the hotel weren't imagined. They were lived experiences adapted for television. Even small details, like the porch sitting, train whistles, and slow pace of life, were drawn from stories Ruth's mother passed down from her own youth. In essence, Petticoat Junction captured a slice of mid-20th century rural Americana, preserving it in the minds of viewers long after such hotels and towns had changed or disappeared. The series thus functioned as both entertainment and cultural documentation, immortalizing a way of life that was rapidly fading in the face of urbanization and technological change. The careful blending of personal memory with comedic storytelling gave the show a warmth that resonated deeply with audiences, allowing them to feel connected not only to the characters, but also to an idealized vision of small-town life. One of the most surprising facts about the cast of Petticoat Junction involves Edgar Buchanan, who portrayed Uncle Joe Carson. Many viewers assumed that his lazy, scheming character was typical of the actor, but in reality, Buchanan had a very different early career. He was a practicing dentist, specifically an oral surgeon, in Eugene, Oregon. He ran a successful dental practice alongside his wife before deciding to pursue acting, a bold career change for anyone, especially in the 1930s. Buchanan became involved in local theater through his patients and discovered a passion for performance. Eventually, he moved to Hollywood, leaving his dental career behind, and carved out a long and prolific acting career. On Petticoat Junction, his Uncle Joe character became a fan favorite, known for napping in the sun, cooking up half-baked schemes, and providing comedic relief. Interestingly, Buchanan was only 3 years older than Benaderet, who played Kate Bradley, yet viewers universally accepted him as a full generation older. His natural comedic timing, warm presence, and ability to embody the lazy yet lovable uncle archetype made him indispensable to the series. Off-screen, however, Buchanan was diligent, professional, and dedicated to his craft, demonstrating a sharp contrast to his on-screen persona. His transformation from dentist to television icon exemplifies the unexpected journeys behind classic Hollywood performers and highlights how unique personal histories can enrich a character's portrayal. One of the most beloved characters in Petticoat Junction wasn't human at all. It was Higgins, the scruffy little dog who became a Hollywood star. On screen, he appeared as a nameless, loyal, and bright-eyed pup who often stole scenes without uttering a single word. While the Bradley sisters and Uncle Joe captured much of the audience's attention, Higgins added an endearing, unpredictable charm to the Shady Rest Hotel, becoming a memorable part of the show's ensemble. Behind the scenes, the dog's story was even more remarkable. Higgins was discovered in a shelter by legendary animal trainer Franken, who immediately recognized his potential for intelligence, agility, and expressive ability. Under his guidance, Higgins learned complex tricks, including nodding yes and no, coughing on cue, untying shoelaces, and even playing dead convincingly. This high level of training allowed Higgins to perform consistently and professionally, often hitting marks more reliably than human actors on set. The bond between Edgar Buchanan and Higgins added another layer of warmth to the series, as the two became inseparable on and off camera. Years later, Higgins would go on to star in the 1974 film Benji, transforming from a television sidekick to a global cinematic icon. The character's journey exemplifies the unique appeal of animal actors in entertainment. They capture hearts without dialogue, convey emotion through expression and action, and often leave lasting legacies that human performers envy. Higgins' presence in Petticoat Junction contributed to the show's charm, offering humor, loyalty, and a sense of unpredictability that perfectly complemented the quirky Hooterville universe. From minor background character to cinematic star, Higgins' story demonstrates the remarkable impact a well-trained animal can have on both narrative and audience engagement, making him an unforgettable part of television history. Another critical figure in the Hooterville shows was Sam Drucker, portrayed by Frank Cady, who acted as a stabilizing force across 3 separate series: Petticoat Junction, Green Acres, and the Beverly Hillbillies. Unlike the chaotic antics of the Bradley sisters or the scheming of Uncle Joe, Sam Drucker was reliable, practical, and steadfast, often serving as the anchor around which the townsfolk revolved. He ran the general store and post office, delivered mail, served as justice of the peace, and even edited the town newspaper in Green Acres. In a fictional world filled with eccentric characters and absurd situations, Sam was the practical glue that held Hooterville together. His consistency and calm demeanor contrasted with the chaos around him, giving viewers a grounding point in a town where trains didn't run on schedule and adventures seemed to occur at random. The fact that Frank Cady played Sam in 3 different shows effectively created one of the first shared television universes, years before such concepts became mainstream. Audiences could watch him seamlessly cross from one series to another, establishing continuity and a sense of realism that enriched the viewing experience. Sam Drucker became more than just a character. He was a symbol of reliability, wisdom, and common sense. In a comedic setting dominated by exaggeration, his grounded presence provided balance, demonstrating the importance of a steadying figure in ensemble casts. Whether serving customers, delivering letters, or dispensing sage advice, Sam's role reinforced the interconnectedness of Hooterville and highlighted the clever planning behind Paul Henning's storytelling, making him an essential piece of the show's enduring legacy. One of the most confusing yet fascinating aspects of Petticoat Junction was the constant recasting of the Bradley sisters over its 7 seasons. This revolving door of actresses often left viewers scratching their heads, trying to keep track of which version of Billy Joe, Bobby Joe, or Betty Joe they were watching. Billy Joe, the eldest sister, was originally played by Janine Riley, who portrayed her as flirtatious and carefree. She was succeeded by Gunilla Hutton and finally by Meredith MacRae, who brought sophistication, ambition, and musical talent to the role, transforming Billy Joe into a character with independence and career aspirations. Bobby Joe, the middle sister, also underwent several changes, shifting from a quiet, bookish personality to a bubbly, scatterbrained charm under Laurie Saunders' portrayal. Amidst all this turnover, Betty Joe, played by Linda K. Henning, remained the one constant, appearing in every episode across all 7 seasons. Interestingly, Linda was the daughter of series creator Paul Henning, though she auditioned under her own name to avoid claims of nepotism. Her consistent presence provided a stable anchor for viewers, maintaining the familial dynamic and emotional continuity despite the frequent casting changes around her. The variations in characterization not only reflected the actress's unique talents, but also allowed the show to evolve over time, introducing new dimensions to the family dynamic and refreshing storylines. This flexibility ensured that Petticoat Junction could adapt to behind-the-scenes challenges while keeping audiences engaged, illustrating how television productions manage continuity in long-running series and highlighting the vital role of a steady, reliable cast member amid a changing ensemble. Before Petticoat Junction, Benaderet had already enjoyed a prolific career across radio, television, and voice acting. Yet she had never held a leading role. By the time she joined the series as Kate Bradley, critics and audiences alike recognized her as one of the most talented and versatile performers of her era. Benaderet brought warmth, comedic timing, and authority to the role, turning Kate Bradley into the moral and emotional center of Hooterville. Her previous work, including playing supporting characters on radio and television, as well as voicing Betty Rubble on The Flintstones, prepared her for the challenges of leading a sitcom. Petticoat Junction became the vehicle through which she finally received the recognition she deserved, and her performance helped define the show's identity. Beyond her skill, Benaderet's dedication and professionalism set an example for her fellow cast members, elevating the series beyond a simple rural comedy. Audiences responded enthusiastically to her presence, making Kate Bradley a beloved character whose warmth, humor, and grounded personality kept the show connected even as it faced changes in cast and direction. For the first several seasons, Benaderet, as Kate Bradley, was the beating heart of Petticoat Junction. Her warmth, humor, and steady presence held the Shady Rest Hotel together, and the Bradley sisters thrived under her guidance. However, in late 1967, Benaderet was diagnosed with a serious illness that would profoundly impact the series. A spot on her lung, first discovered in 1963, had grown significantly, and the tumor was deemed inoperable. During radiation treatments, she missed 10 episodes, forcing the writers to explain Kate's absence through temporary storylines involving substitute maternal figures such as Aunt Helen, played by Rosemary DeCamp, and Cousin May, played by Shirley Mitchell. Although these characters provided temporary stability, viewers noticed the absence of Kate Bradley's signature warmth, and the dynamic of the show began to shift. When Benaderet returned briefly for the season 5 finale, she appeared noticeably thinner and weaker, yet she remained determined to complete her scenes. Sadly, by the fall of 1968, her cancer returned, and she was unable to continue filming. Her final appearance in season 6 used a body double for rear shots, with only her voice included. This loss forced the show to reinvent itself, introducing June Lockhart as Dr. Janet Craig, a professional and polished medical figure who rented a room at the Shady Rest. While Dr. Craig provided guidance and stability for the girls, her presence lacked the maternal intimacy that Kate Bradley had brought to the series. The audience felt the shift immediately. The heart of Hooterville had been removed, and although the show continued, it never regained the same emotional depth. Benaderet's illness and subsequent passing not only affected cast and crew but also marked a turning point in the series, demonstrating how a central actor's health can fundamentally alter the trajectory and emotional resonance of a television show. The way Petticoat Junction adapted reflected the production team's resourcefulness, but also highlighted the irreplaceable role of a beloved lead in anchoring a long-running sitcom. Petticoat Junction did not end because viewers stopped tuning in. It ended because CBS decided the audience no longer fit their ideal demographic. By the late 1960s, the network had a lineup dominated by rural comedies, including the Beverly Hillbillies, Green Acres, and Mayberry RFD, alongside Petticoat Junction. These shows pulled in millions of viewers weekly, often topping the ratings charts, yet CBS executives were more concerned with advertisers' desire for younger, urban, and more affluent audiences aged 18 to 49. When Fred Silverman took over programming in 1970, he launched what became known as the Rural Purge, a sweeping cancellation of small-town and rural-themed series, regardless of ratings success. Between 1970 and 1971, CBS systematically removed most of its rural shows, replacing them with urban, socially conscious programming that reflected modern societal tensions. Petticoat Junction, already weakened by the loss of Benaderet and declining ratings, was among the first shows to be canceled. Its final episode aired in April 1970, marking the end of the Hooterville universe. This decision did not reflect a failure of content or audience engagement. Rather, it was a strategic shift aimed at reshaping television for a new generation. The Rural Purge demonstrated the tension between creative success and network profitability, showing how ratings alone do not guarantee a show's survival. For many fans, the cancellations represented not just the loss of entertainment, but the disappearance of an entire television